Well, hey, welcome to Recharge 2023. This is week 3, and our topic today is 21 ways to ruin your Awana ministry. And then we're going to go through these ways. And we're going to do this is part 1. So we're going to do these ways. They're kind of tongue in cheek, and then some thoughts about how you can fix those things. And so I'm here with my colleague from Texas, Melanie Grigsby. You want to say hello?
Hi, gang. Glad to be back for another week.
Yes. What's Texas? What's weather?
Well, it's been pretty nice, but we are in the Texas Panhandle part of it anyway. We are fixing to approach a winter storm warning, and we're all waiting to see, is it actually going to get here or not? We don't know if it's going to be no snow, 1 inch, 4 inches, 10 inches. It's just it's a mystery.
No, will you get ice storm out of that?
Hopefully not, but there's a potential for ice. If we don't get the snow part, good. We might get stuck with the ice, but we don't talk about that 3-letter word.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, by the way, we're going to do 11 today, and we have a bonus too.
Yes.
Bonus way you can ruin your Awana ministry. So the first way is prayerlessness. So in your Awana club, if you're not praying, you're not thinking of ministry right. Sometimes there's so many things to do in ministry, and the tendency is always just to go and do and more task and give me another task and more. But really, ministry is spiritual work. And so we want to make sure that the results are, number one, they're the work of God, and we give glory to God. If it's not dependent on God, why do we need Him, and why are we going to give Him glory? So I would say first thing is you want to make sure that you're praying always. So I would say, pray at home, maybe before club, pray, maybe have a prayer chat with your leaders. If you want to invite your parents, have a prayer chat with your parents. Maybe at the beginning of the year, have a prayer meeting. I've seen it all kinds of different ways. There's some clubs who they'll have the ministry director lead opening ceremony, and then the club directors will have a prayer time, and then kind of a last instructions before club. So make sure you're praying. Mel, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, totally agree that leaders, we need to be getting together for prayer. But this is also another great opportunity for, you may have some people that, let's be honest, do not need to be working with kids, but they're amazing prayer warriors. Maybe they could be praying during club for us. They might be at home. You may have some older individuals that are passionate. They want to be there, but for medical reasons, health reasons, whatever, they just can't get there to help you with club. But they might be at home praying for you. And those nights are the best nights when you got the prayer warriors going. So
I've seen that. Senior saints.
Yeah.
They don't want to, they see the value of child discipleship. They see the value of Awana, but they just can't get out. Maybe they're handicapped, whatever, but they say, hey, I can pray for your ministry. There's some clubs we have that have a separate prayer team at home. And so, for sure. Number 2, untrained leaders. You want to make sure all your leaders are not trained if you want to ruin your club.
Jeff, don't go there. Hey, no, sometimes we've got leaders who are untrained. They're uncertain about what they're doing, or they may have just gotten lost in the why. So let me start with the ones that have gotten lost in the why. Are we keeping the vision, the purpose up front? Is it like, do we have it plastered somewhere in maybe where the Awana leaders all come in and get their name badges and their handbooks or their whatever their container is for the night? Do we have something banner or kind of plastered there saying, hey, you're reaching kids for Christ, or whatever that you need to say, that they remember why we're focusing this? That also will just kind of help them keep that energy level going. But some of our leaders truly, whether they were not able to come to training early on, or they started after we did our first of the year training, and maybe they got that training by fire. Jeff, we don't know anything about that, do we? But maybe they've been kind of floundering along, but they're still a little lost and a little confused. This is a great time for us to use our Awana Basics online. Bring it up, or even for those who did do it, but need a little refresher about why are we doing what we're doing, or what is it that small groups about, large group games. Y'all get the drift where I'm going. Jeff just put up the link. If you want to go to awanabasics.awana.org. All the leaders sign in. They can go watch the videos. This is a great, like I said, time to learn, refresh. Or for some of us, just go back and say, hey, I remember there was that one topic. Where was it? And then you can call Jeff and ask him, where was that one topic? Jeff, what else do you want to add about our leaders who are maybe a little bit lost?
Yeah, I think number one, untrained leaders are frustrated leaders. They may leave. They will come and they're not sure what to do, and so they're saying, "Hey, they don't need me here." So untrained leaders are frustrated leaders. I would say too, maybe try and create the culture of training. And if you're the ministry director or a club director, what I used to do is I had a email template. And so if somebody, you're along in October, November, you had your beginning of year training, and then you have new leaders come on October, November. They say, hey, I want to serve with you. And so I had an email template. Hey, here's the child protection link. Here's the Awana Basics link. And so set up some kind of a training of a culture of training so that leaders, so that you are always training people. And I think even beyond that, getting your folks on these kind of things. Awana's got podcasts. Melanie and I just got back from a resilient child discipleship training down in Los Angeles, and there's going to be one online. And I know I'm going to, for our folks, I'm going to pass on that information. I'm guessing Melanie will do the same. So, yeah, make sure your leaders are trained.
The other thing, Jeff, under making sure just kind of helping the leaders know what their job is, we've got some great digital tools besides the Awana Basics. The roll books, for if you've been around very long, you remember the old-fashioned book that was, everybody said, oh, I don't want to read it. But I tell you what, every time I had a leader read it, it was wow. They loved it. But that's digital. You can get that now digital. And also the pocket guides. I know when you print them out now, because you order them, it's a digital. It's what prints. It's not as cool as the way it used to be. But still, just having those little couple of tidbits of information about what am I supposed to do right now? I'm in game time. What do I do as the leader? That just, for a lot of people, just gives them that kind of that confidence. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. I think too is, when I was the ministry director, I would let the club directors train their people, their leaders, because rather than the ministry director doing training for everybody, you want the club directors to do the training, because they're ultimately going to be in the trenches and they're going to have their little nuances of how they do things. And so you want to make sure that they train their people. And we used to just tell them, we'd give them a pocket guide. We gave them a roll book. And we said, hey, if you want to have a good club, smooth year, make sure you equip your leaders well. And if you equip them well, you'll have a good year. If you don't, you won't. And so get your club directors on that. So number 3, a club that is out of control. So if you want to ruin your ministry, make sure things are totally out of control. Now, when I say this, I always tell people, hey, game time, Awana's got to be fun and exciting, borderline out of control. So you want to make sure, and years ago when I started out as a cubby director, and the kids were running around having fun, yelling and screaming. There were some bully kids, and they started, they were kind of being aggressive with some of the other kids. And so over the year, we had kids come and go. We had a lot of kids, new kids coming, but they would come for a few weeks and then leave. And I started realizing that bullying could have helped or could have propelled that. And then secondly, you have leaders that come, and if your club's out of control, there's people who don't want to be around that. So if it's, if you have a well-disciplined club and that you're there, it's fun, but it's well-disciplined. Discipline meaning the kids are listening. You have a plan for discipline, and the plan would be the 3 count, the 5 count. There's some other resources available for that, but make sure your club is disciplined and you have a plan, not heavy-handed discipline, but the kids know what they're doing. The leaders know what they're doing. Everybody knows what's expected, or the kids know what's expected as far as their behavior. The leaders know what's expected, how to manage that behavior. And so, yeah, make sure your club's in control. Mel, you have any thoughts on that?
I just always remember Kyle, my husband, for those of you who don't know, he was the game guy for all the years we were at the local club level. And he picked up the term at one of the Awana Ministry conferences somewhere along the way. Game time equals controlled chaos. The key word is the controlled part. It's not. So therefore, I mean, like Jeff said, it is all about the fun, the wild, the wow, but everybody knew the limits. And so really just make sure the adults understand the why. We have to make sure the kids don't run around kicking each other. Some of us were like, well, that's silly, but I've watched it happen. So, and then do the kids know that they can't do that? Once again, we think they do, but have we told them?
Yeah. And if you're a club director or a ministry director, make sure you stay on top of this so that you protect your leaders and protect your kids. So if you're the club director, you want to make sure your discipline's good so that those people feel good about what they're doing. So, okay, number 3. Number 4, leaders who have no real purpose. So if you want to have a club that's out of control or a club that's ruin your Awana club, make sure the leaders don't have a reason for being there.
Yeah, that would be a really bad idea, Jeff. Let's not do that. What are we talking about here? I can think of 2 great examples. They're different, but fit under the same category. The first one kind of ties back to what we were talking about a while ago with the leaders not being trained. Do they remember the why we're here? What are we doing? What is our purpose? We're reaching kids. We're discipling. We're evangelizing. Are they truly on board with that and really understand their mission? Do they understand the passion, our goals, those things? The second group that and you're like going, oh, this would never happen. Once again, I've watched it happen. You have done the work. You've got somebody volunteer to show up, and they show up for club, but they're not needed for whatever reason. They feel like it, or they were told that. If you've got 2 kids for small group time and you got 2 leaders, well, guess what? You got the best ratio possible. That's a one-on-one. Every adult is needed. And so make sure if someone's there, you give them a job. They know that they gave up their night. Let's make sure we're thankful, we're grateful, they're included. And if it happens like several weeks in a row, well, then we need to be talking about a few other things, because obviously sometimes you're like, oh, that one adult over there, she's got 4 kids in her small group. She doesn't need my help. Well, maybe we AMDs, club directors, maybe we kind of miss that, but grab that person and say, no, this week we're going to have 2 kids with 1 adult, not 4 kids with 1 adult. It's just going to makes for everybody be included, be involved. Jeff, what else do you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I was going to say that applies especially, or the way I've seen it in the past, apply especially to student leaders, because you'll have student leaders come and then adults are there, and hey, they're just kind of here to help. But if you have student leaders, make sure you find something for them to do, meaningful something to do, even if you have to back out a little bit, because you want them to have a reason for being there. Secondly, maybe ask your people, hey, what's your job here? What do you see as your job? And you have to kind of be careful how to say that. You don't want to be in their face, but hey, what's your job here? And why are you here? And so they can start thinking, well, I'm a handbook leader, or I'm this, or I teach the Bible. So just make sure you give people a reason for being at club every night. So, okay. Number 5, pastor and church leadership that have no appreciation for the value of child discipleship. This is a really big one. We see this a lot where the church has no vision for child discipleship. And so I would tell you a couple of things is, if your pastor and your church leadership don't have appreciation for value of child discipleship, it's probably because you haven't given them value. So you want to make sure you meet with your pastor, if you can, share with them your heart, gather all those statistics about, hey, most salvation decisions are made by the age of 14. Build your case and talk to your pastor consistently about why child discipleship, why Awana, God's heart for kids, how kids are important for the long-term health of the church. And really, you want to be casting that vision. You don't want to be rude to them or, over the top, but just constantly casting that vision. Another idea on that, we should do something called an Awana Sunday. We do it a couple times a year, and we'd have everybody, the leaders and the kids, wear their uniform to Sunday service. And the commander, back then, the commander would lead a game or two, maybe just a short, like we would do the beanbag, run the kids, or kids would run down the aisle of the church, put a beanbag on the stage, run back, the next kid grabbed a beanbag, some kind of fun thing. Have somebody share their testimony of their story with, related to how God's using them in child discipleship. So just constantly casting that vision to not just the church, or not just your leaders that Awana, but the church as well. So the church sees, hey, this is important ministry, and that'll help with recruiting. It's going to help with everything if you're casting that vision. So thoughts on that, Mel?
Well, I want to back up and ask the AMDs, the club directors, do you know what the benefits of Awana is at your church? Have you identified it? Because if you haven't identified it, then you can't share it. So take a moment, think about what's it doing for your church. Have you reached a whole bunch of the kids that are not part of the church, that don't have a church home? Maybe you've seen a lot of parents coming in and wanting to talk and ask questions. Have we shared that with the pastor, with our deacons, our elders, our leadership? Because maybe they haven't realized we've got a lot of adults that are needing some discipleship. I was talking to a pastor this afternoon, and that's what he was wanting to tell me. He was so excited to call that in 2 weeks, they're going to have baptism of 10 people. 7 of them are kids, 3 are adults. They all came through the door on Wednesday night first, not Sunday morning. Are we letting that word get out so that others are knowing that? Yeah.
Yeah. I've been to churches on Sunday morning. They have a baptismal service, and the kids come up there, and I go, and I say, hey, do those kids go to your club? Yes. How come you didn't say anything that they got saved at Awana? Hey, I saw Bill up here getting baptized, and I saw him here Wednesday night for your club. How come you're not sharing that leaders are getting baptized? And so just keep that in mind, that you want to, it's not like we want to be over the top and Awana Nazis, but let the church leadership and the pastor know how God is using Awana in the church. So, okay. Number 6, doing the same thing week after week.
Ooh.
Da, 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 da.
Talk about boring sometimes. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. Well, when is it bad? Think about it. We're dealing with kids. They do not like the same thing every week. Well, wait, that's the big kids don't like it either. How many times do you like, I just want my job to have a little something new and exciting in it? The kids are the same way. So what are we talking about? Well, my part that I'm going to talk about has to do with large group lesson. Do we come in, same voice, same exact repetition of everything's identical? Or did this week we come in and maybe we did an object lesson? Next week, maybe it's something with some type of a theatrical. Next week, it might be using some type of a video. Are you including the senses? You would say this is easier for Sparks than TNT. I'll challenge that one. But if we can use the five senses, make the kids see what was happening, make them hear it. One of the examples I've heard recently, if there was some sounds, night sounds, or if there was a big boom, well, find you a tape, pull it up on our phone. My phone got left upstairs, so I can't use my prop, but have that sound ready to go. So click it and let the kids hear it. So now they're experiencing it, that large group lesson. But just mix it up, doing things a little different. Sometimes it's simply a matter, if I do large group lesson every week, I'm going to bring in somebody else because a different voice will catch the kids differently. And they may do everything identical. It's just a different voice. Can y'all imagine if Jeff came in and followed a week after me doing large group, how the kids would be very different. But the other thing to think about, same thing week after week, how are we doing on fun theme nights, in engagement activities? Do we have a good mix? And this is that moment to stop and evaluate. Maybe you're saying, well, we do a theme night every week. Well, that might be the problem, or it might not. If you're like feeling something's off, maybe we need to back up and do one a month, one every other week. If you're not doing any of the theme nights, maybe we need to add one in. Do not think it's got to be every 4 weeks. Maybe it's once every 6 weeks. Just kind of look at your calendar and look at some fun things. The other thing is sometimes you might need to do something goofy, like everybody who brought a friend in February gets to take part of the pizza party. I remember sometimes we've done in the past, we're going to have an ice cream night, but the number of toppings is based on, you fill in the blank, bring a friend, number versus said, number of if you were present every week, every week you're present, you get a topping. Have some kind of fun incentive thing so the kids look forward to something different. Those are some of my thoughts on keeping things fresh, exciting, new. Keep the kids guessing a little bit sometimes. Jeff, we got any other things?
I would say related to theme nights, you don't have to have these crazy theme nights. Matter of fact, if you have dress up theme nights every week, the moms are not going to want your kids to come, but you can have theme nights. Hey, have a balloon night. We're going to play games with balloons. Hey, have something easy, so that there's always some extra excitement. You could have a different game theme nights. You could have, do club backwards. So instead of, if you do game time, large group, small group, you could do small group first, large group second, game time last. So the kids, it's totally back. We call those backwards night. You could have inside out night where the kids get to wear their clothes and their uniform inside out. It's not a huge thing, but it just creates some extra excitement. And if you're always kind of keeping them off balance, you could, you play games and run around a circle one way. Well, the next week we're going to run the other way. And it's kind of a fun thing. Or there's just always be thinking something different. It doesn't have to be a major thing. Matter of fact, just small little things keep things exciting. Did you want to add something, Mel, or are you good?
You covered it all.
Okay. Okay. Number 7, playing the same games each week. So yeah, I mean, hey, if you roll in there and dodgeball and then dodgeball and then dodgeball and then dodgeball. So you want to play different games. I would, when I led games, there's sort of a dichotomy of this, because if you're always explaining a game and not playing the game, that's not good. But if you're always playing the same games every week, that's not good. So number 1 rule would be, if it takes longer to explain the game than it does to play it, don't play it, And then, you take your games and you get, let's just say you had, 5 games that you really like. So week 1, you'd play game 1, game 2, game 3. Week 2, you play game 2, game 3, game 4. and then week 3, 3, 4, and 5, so that you're playing some similar games, but some different games. The other thing related to this, playing the same games every week, is you want to play different types of games because not every kid is good at running. Some kids are good at thinking. Some kids are good at agility. So you want to play different kind of games, because if you play running games and the same kids win week after week, those kids that don't win are not going to want to come. Whereas if every week there's a thinking game, there's an agility game, there's then a running game, then the kids are going to want to, you're going to have a variety of kids that want to come. I remember talking to Art Rohrheim, and we, the Awana games and Sparks Rama used to have you put the balloon over your head and you got to put it to your feet. And he says the reason he put that in there was because it was more agility. The kids had to think. They couldn't just run as fast as they can. So keep that in mind as you plan out your games. Mel.
Yeah. Also, remember, we talked about the thinking games, but is there a way to connect what the kids learned in large group lesson to the games? Now, some weeks it works really well, some it's not so well. But I'm just thinking, can you add in the books of the Bible into game time? Well,
Yeah.
this would bring in a bunch of them, the ones who can think and remember, the agility to get them in order, whether it's on cups or wood blocks or puzzle pieces, lots of different, or leave just paper, and they got to put them in order. And it's same thing, which team did it first? Sometimes just, think of those type thoughts. My other one on be creative, change it up. If you can safely, child protection is number one. But if you can safely, go inside, outside. If you always are outside, can we do something inside for a little different? When years back, we did all of our games outside, and it worked most nights of the year. But there was about 3 that we got crammed inside to a small room. Those were the nights for Bible hangman, Pictionary, charades, kind of having those kind of fun games. But for everybody who does them insides, let's go outside, have some fun, run around and scream a lot because, well, let's face it, the kids love it. They need to blow off the steam. And 2, what's the best way to advertise your club? Kids laughing and having fun.
I was visiting a club one time. They want a game square, and that's where the teams line up. Then they run around the circle. So this club this night said, you stand on the circle and you run around the square. So it was kind of a unique way to do it. Just one more thing to just add a little extra fun and excitement. So, okay. So number 8 way to ruin your club. If you want to ruin your club, don't have any team leaders on the line during game time. Mel.
I know we're kind of on this theme of games all of a sudden, but games is a big chunk of our night, and it's what draws the kids. So we need to really be thinking about how's this part affecting our kids. And a huge one, Jeff, you said it back a while ago. If it takes so long to explain the game, then we can't play the game because we've lost everybody. Well, part of that takes so long to explain the game is because the adults are not in there to get the understanding. If we have at least 1, preferably 2 or 3 adults with each team, when the game director explains the rules, the adults are listening, and then they can explain it to the kids when answer the questions with their 10 kids, 12 kids, however many kids you have on your group. But if that poor game director is trying to answer 50 questions, we don't have a game time long enough to answer all those questions. So leaders, you are needed on that game square. Engage, involved. Plus, if you're engaged and involved, you're getting to know these kids. And I know that in small group, we're going to be we've spent the whole year, Jeff, talking about belonging, believing, becoming. But on that game square, we get to really know these kids in a little bit different way. What are their gifts? Are they that kid that's good with agility? Are they that kid that's good running? Are they the one that's the creative thinker in your group that can solve the mysteries? You got to know that. So we can work with the kids. And that way you can really engage with them a whole lot better.
Mm.
And plus, if you're not there on the line, for those kids that maybe think that they don't like game time, what are we telling them? You're right, this isn't important. But if we're there and we're the ones leading the encouragement, the high fives, then we're giving a great example of why this is important. What else?
Yeah. I would just add game directors coach your line leaders and teach them the games so they can teach the kids the games. So that way you're not yelling at 40 kids. You're working with those few game directors. So number 9, too many kids in a small group. So there's sort of a dichotomy of this because, hey, our recommendation is 2 leaders per 10 kids. However, that's not always the case. So you want to constantly be recruiting. Some people don't want to lead games. They don't want to do anything. They just want to sit with the kids, a small group. You could have some small group leaders who go from Sparks to TNT to Cubbies, and they just do small groups. Now, the other side of this is what are you going to do if you have 10 kids with 1 leader? So you might have to do your small group time a little different. Have a group recite. Have kids help each other. So you want to think about that so that small group time is productive. And I think I've seen clubs where they've got 12 or 13 kids with 1 leader, and they do a group recite. They write the verse on a whiteboard, especially now that we're, all group pacing where everybody's in the same section. They write the verse on the whiteboard, recite it together a few times with the kids, erase a word, erase another word, say it again, erase another word. And so think about that. Having said that, like I say, there's a dichotomy. You always want to be recruiting new leaders. Child protection, think about this, but you could have a sign-up sheet with parents. Hey, can you serve helping kids say verses once or twice a year? If they don't want to commit to every week, can parents commit to leading a small or being there to listen to verses? The other thing, could you do I can't remember what we called it, where they would meet before a club. So a club starts at 6:00. You kids can come and recite verses at 5:45, and so you fast track time, we called it. Oh. And so could you do that, especially with your leaders' kids? Could you have your leaders' kids recite their verses before a club? They're there early with their parents. Could you have them recite verses before a club? So if you can knock out 30% of your kids before a club starts, that might help. So those are just some of my thoughts, Mel.
You were talking about, we're trying to get more leaders so that we've always good. It kind of jumps back to 1, have we prayed? We talked about that earlier. We also talked earlier about, are we sharing our successes with our leaders, our church leadership, our pastor? What about the church body? We talked a little bit about that. Not just what the kid's doing, but hey, look at all these kids we've gotten this opportunity. Are we sharing that? And so kind of help spread the vision, might help some of the other adults. But Jeff, you were talking about, if you could get a couple of parents to volunteer, come in once every 6 weeks, all of a sudden they might catch the vision as to what's going on too. So It started out one thing, but we quickly moved it into they were their faithful, committed leaders.
Yeah. Okay, number 10, don't communicate. If you want to ruin your club, don't communicate with your leaders, with your parents. Don't communicate.
That's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, if we're not communicating, those of us in leadership, that just creates confusion, and confusion kills. And so, I feel like this has been my topic for this year. Guys, we've got to over-communicate almost. And for some of us, I know it's frustrating, but it's because we're like, I sent out that text. Yeah, but that we only got a third of your leaders, because the other third of them only pay attention to the Facebook group, and another part of them only look at their emails. And they just look at it, we got to do it different ways. So if we really want to make sure the word gets out, what's the calendar for this next month? Have we told the leaders what the theme nights are that are coming up? So they're prepared, they're ready. This will help get them excited. Because if they find out 5 minutes before, they're just frustrated. Also, in addition to the leaders, are we communicating with the parents? Are we telling them what's going on? Whether it's theme night or activities, or have we just shared with them what's going on at club? Maybe they'd like to know that we've had 7 salvations in the last 2 months. And sometimes
I think that's a good point, Mel, is don't just communicate, hey, this is crazy hat night. Communicate the successes. Hey, Billy accepted Jesus. Hey, we've got new volunteers. Hey, communicate the successes with your leaders and your parents. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my thought on communication.
Yeah, I kind of interrupted you. Added my thoughts before it was my turn.
Okay.
Communicate. I think, I was thinking about this too, is if you're the ministry director, rely on your club directors to communicate with their parents and their leaders, because rather than you communicating with a large group of people, can each club director communicate with their team, and that way there's not such a big burden. With our club, we have snow days, and so when we have a snow day, we make the decision and then we communicate with the club directors, and then that filters down to the parents, so that everybody, because the club director knows they know those people.
Yeah. Well, and even on that, I'm going to jump in and grab your time there, Jeff. Not only does the club director a great person to communicate, hey, small group leaders, can you communicate with your small group? You could call Billy's mom and say, hey, we're not having club tonight, or call Billy's mom and say, hey, I know y'all been gone a couple of weeks, but I just wanted you to know, 1, we missed you, but 2, this week is, and tell them whatever's going on this week.
Yeah.
Let them, small group leaders can take a few minutes to do that. And we're still now down to we're not having to do so much. We're dividing the work up.
Yeah. Set up a text list, email list, group me list, WhatsApp list, whatever you need to do to make that happen. So, okay. Number 11, no plan for the Bible lesson, or you don't prepare. You just roll in and, hey, we're just going to do it. So I think, when we think about the large group time, you got, okay, we're going to divide up the club, half-hour large group time. So are you just going to preach at them for a half an hour? Maybe that's such a good idea. So I like to encourage people to take that half hour and break it up into smaller segments. So you could have a review of the books of the Bible. You could have some worship. You could have the lesson. You could play a video. We've got this Awana Plus that has videos. And a lot of our clubs still aren't totally aware of that. It's Awana Plus, plus.com. You could play the video there, 5 minutes, give or take. Play the video. Then you teach a lesson, follow the discussion questions. One thing we like to do too, or I encourage, is to play a Bible review game. So think about it. They watched a video on the lesson. You taught them the lesson. They have a Bible review game related to that lesson. And I would say when you do the Bible review game, ask the questions in sequential order of the story. So essentially, you're telling that story again. You ask the first question is kind of the intro to the story. Second question is the more, ask those questions. Go online, do a Google on Bible review games. There's plenty out there. So just break up that large group time. The other thing too is if you're the club director or ministry director, have a plan for what happens at 5 minutes. If at 5 minutes to 6, somebody texts you and say, I'm stuck in traffic, I'm not going to be there. Or little Billy is throwing up, I can't be there. So have a plan. I made a video a while back about 12 things you can do if your large group teacher can't make it. Take a look at that. And I think, let me just see here if I have here's the URL for it, youtube.com/JeffGilpin1. So I've got a video on that. So Yeah, have a good plan. So those are all the 11 ways.
Well,
We
Jeff,
talked about 20. I got the bonus for you.
well, I was going to say on the, you don't come in planned. I was just going to say, one, we all know things get ahead of us. Sometimes we're running a little behind schedule. We didn't get time to really prepare for tonight. But if that happens every week or regularly, the kids notice. They figure out that they're not preparing. If they're not preparing, that means this really isn't important. And we think the kids don't know, but they're pretty smart. Even the cubbies, they'll finally figure it out. And we don't want that message going out to our kids. And then I was going to tag on to the awanaplus.com. You were talking about the videos on there, which I love. But for the TNT lessons, they have extra bonus teaching material. And I love that for the TNT. There's a couple of different, like choose this or this to get us started. And there's a couple of like an object lesson or a way to present the story a little differently. And I like that. Just really, that helps the leaders have a little bit of confidence, I think.
You know what? It's kind of interesting. I have a couple of clubs that they don't use the large group teaching guide. They use that bonus material, and they like to teach out of that. So yeah, good point. So we went over these 11 out of the 21 ways. We're going to do the next 10 next week. But we thought we have a little bonus way to ruin your Awana club. And I'll go ahead and you can talk about that, Mel.
Well, everything we've talked about tonight pretty much is how we're investing in the kids, but you cannot give something you don't have. And so, how can we tell these kids how to have a walk with God if we're running a little low on that calendar, in that category? So how is your personal time with God? Are you spending time with God daily, reading the Bible? And I'm not talking about 5 hours every day. That would be kind of cool some days to get to do that. But I mean, when was the last time you sat down and had a serious prayer time with God? Just you, not about club, just you in your life. Whether you read Bible, devotion. And I love we have so many tools available today, like like Bible apps. That YouVersion Bible app has got so many Bible reading plans. And then what I know, Jeff, you introduced it to me of, I can do it alone, or I can get a team going together and we can do it and then comment back and forth what we got from today's lesson. So sometimes, if you need a friend to help you, well, this is a great way to do that. I know for a lot of clubs, the women's Bible study, the men's Bible study meets the same time as Awana. Maybe we could have on a different night or Zoom or something, an Awana leaders Bible study, just to keep us in the Word, walking, growing, and working on those spiritual disciplines that we're asking the kids to do. Because if we're not doing them, like I said a while ago, they know.
Yeah. I would say, I'm starting my 3rd or 4th year of reading through the Bible cover to cover. And I do it on YouVersion with a couple other guys, and very meaningful. We get to share our thoughts and very meaningful. There's also a spot on there you can add some prayer requests. So make sure that you, like Mel said, you can't give what you don't have. So I would say we put this as a bonus, but almost we should have put this as number 1. To make sure you have a personal time with God. So that's it. We'll be back next week with the next 10, maybe a couple bonus thoughts. And thank you all for tuning in, and hope this was helpful. And thank you for all you're doing, investing in the lives of children. So thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, gang.